The moment the words left his mouth, the entire bank seemed to freeze. Jamal Carter, CEO, billionaire investor, and owner of Hamilton First National Bank, had just been denied service at his own institution. The irony dripped like poison from the moment, heavy and humiliating. Denise Parker, the branch manager, stood behind the counter, her face tight with barely concealed disdain. Her fingers drummed against the keyboard, the artificial click, click, click filling the awkward silence as she verified his identity. But Jamal already knew what this was. This wasn't about security. This wasn't about policy. This was about the fact that he was black, standing in a place she clearly thought he didn't belong. Jamal had seen it before, too many times to count. In boardrooms, in high-end restaurants, at private clubs where his money was accepted but his presence wasn't. But never had it happened here. At his own damn bank. The weight of her assumption pressed down on him like a slow-building fire. His blood simmered, not just from the insult, but from the sheer stupidity of it. She had no idea who she was dealing with. Yet he leaned on the counter, his towering presence making Denise shift uneasily. "I'll give you one more chance," he said, voice smooth as steel. "Run the card." Denise swallowed, hesitation flickering in her cold blue eyes. Then, instead of processing his request, she did the unthinkable. She waved to security. Jamal's jaw tightened as a tall, burly guard in a stiff navy uniform approached, his boots echoing across the polished floors. "Is there a problem here?" the guard asked, folding his arms across his chest. Denise plastered on a tight-lipped smile. "He's being uncooperative with verification procedures. Can you escort him outside while we sort this out?" A low chuckle escaped Jamal. It was dark, humorless, like the calm before a storm. The security guard stepped forward. Too close. Jamal didn't flinch, but inside, a dangerous energy coiled within him. He had built empires, moved money that controlled economies. Yet, here he was, being treated like some low-level scammer at the bank that bore his name. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Jamal exhaled sharply through his nose, shaking his head. The stupidity of it all was almost comical. Then, finally, he decided. Enough. Jamal reached into his jacket pocket. The security guard's hand darted to his belt. Denise took a step back, her face twisting in sudden alarm. But Jamal didn't pull out a weapon. That he pulled out his executive credentials. He slammed them onto the counter. Silence hit the room like a shockwave. The embossed letters gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Jamal Carter, Chief Executive Officer, Hamilton First National Bank. Denise's face drained of color. The security guard's posture stiffened, his hand hesitating near his belt. Every nearby employee froze, their eyes flickering between the ID and their manager's horrified expression. Jamal leaned in just slightly, his voice like a razor's edge. "Now, let me ask you again." He locked eyes with Denise. "Do you want to run that card, or should I escort you out?" The entire bank stood still. For the first time since he walked in, Denise had no words. Denise's hands trembled as she stared at the executive ID on the counter. The realization hit her like a brick wall. She had just denied service to the man who owned everything in this building, including her job. A slow, suffocating silence filled the bank lobby. Employees exchanged wide-eyed glances, processing what had just happened. Customers in the waiting area, who had been watching the scene unfold with casual curiosity, were now fully invested. Denise's lips parted slightly, but no words came out. The confidence, the condescending tone she had carried minutes ago, gone. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed hard, looking at Jamal as if seeing him for the first time. The security guard took a cautious step back, his eyes darting between Jamal and Denise. The color had drained from his face too. He had almost put hands on the CEO of the entire bank. Jamal let the silence drag out. He wanted her to feel it, the weight of her mistake, and when he finally spoke, his voice was dangerously calm. "Do you know what's funny, Denise?" He tilted his head slightly, as if truly curious. "You were so quick to assume I didn't belong here. So quick to call security on me. So quick to doubt me. But let me tell you exactly where you went wrong." Denise's breath hitched. Jamal picked up his ID, slipping it back into his pocket with a slow, deliberate motion. "You see, I don't just have money in this bank," he continued. "I own this bank. I sign the checks, including yours." He let that settle in before adding, "Well, at least I used to." Denise visibly flinched, her fingers tightening into fists at her sides. "Sir, I didn't realize." Jamal cut her off. He let out a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. "You didn't ask. You didn't check. The first thing you did was assume that I didn't belong." Denise's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "I was just following protocol." "No," Jamal interrupted again. "You weren't. You were following bias." The tension in the air was suffocating. The security guard shifted uncomfortably, and a few tellers in the back pretended to be busy, their hands moving uselessly over keyboards that they weren't actually typing on. Jamal took a step back, rubbing his jaw as if considering something. "You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe you were just following protocol." He gestured toward the other employees. "Let's ask them." Denise paled even more. Jamal turned, addressing a young black male employee at a nearby desk. "Tell me something," he asked. "If a white man walked in here in a tailored suit, requesting a withdrawal from a corporate account, would you have given him this much trouble?" The employee shifted uncomfortably, looking between Jamal and Denise before answering carefully. "No, sir." Jamal nodded as if he expected the answer. Then he turned to a Latina employee standing near the teller station. "And you? Ever seen a manager refuse to verify an account when a white businessman comes in?" The woman swallowed hard, glancing at Denise before shaking her head. "No, sir. That's not how we usually do things." Jamal turned back to Denise, who looked like she wanted to disappear. "Good. Now, here's what's going to happen," he said, his voice cutting through the thick air. "You're going to process my withdrawal. Then, you're going to pack up your things." Denise blinked rapidly, her breath coming in short gasps. "Wait, sir, please. I don't do second chances for people who treat me like a criminal in my own business," Jamal said sharply. "I built this bank on service, respect, and opportunity. And you? You don't belong in an institution that stands for any of that." Denise's lip trembled. Her hands hovered over the keyboard, but they weren't typing. She looked at Jamal, eyes filled with a desperate kind of regret. "Please, Mr. Carter, save it," he snapped. "You weren't sorry when you thought I was just another black man trying to take money from your bank. You weren't sorry when you called security. You're only sorry now because you got caught." Tears welled up in her eyes, but Jamal had zero sympathy. She had disrespected him without hesitation. She had to face the consequences without mercy. "Run the transaction." He ordered that Denise's fingers trembled as she typed in the amount. The machine whirred, printing the receipt as she pushed the freshly counted $100,000 in cash across the counter. Jamal took his money, folded the receipt neatly, and placed it in his pocket. Then, with one last look at Denise, he spoke the words that sealed her fate. Effective immediately, "You're fired." The words hit the room like a bomb. Gasps erupted from the employees. Customers in the waiting area exchanged stunned glances. Denise gasped audibly, her hand flying to her mouth. "Mr. Carter, please," she begged, her voice a hoarse whisper. Jamal held up a hand. "Don't embarrass yourself any further. You did this to yourself." Tears spilled from her eyes. The security guard had backed away completely, clearly wanting no part in the mess. The other employees avoided her gaze. Jamal turned and walked away, his shoes clicking against the marble floor as he reached the entrance. He stopped and glanced back one last time. "Oh, and Denise?" he called over his shoulder. She looked up, red-faced and humiliated. Jamal smirked. "Good luck finding another job in banking. I'll make sure you never work in this industry again." And with that, he strode out the doors, the weight of justice hanging in the air behind him. Denise Parker would regret this moment for the rest of her life. As Jamal stepped out of the bank, the warm breeze of the afternoon air did little to cool the fire simmering in his chest. The moment replayed in his mind, each second cementing his anger deeper. He had spent years building this empire, fought through racism in boardrooms, defied expectations, dominated in an industry that had never wanted him there. And yet, no matter how much money he had, no matter how many institutions bore his name, he still wasn't enough in their eyes. He exhaled slowly, pressing his key fob. The sleek Mercedes beeped as he climbed inside. His phone vibrated. A message from Lisa Rodriguez, head of PR. "Lisa, Mr. Carter, we have an issue. Someone recorded what happened at the bank. It's all over social media." Jamal closed his eyes for a brief second, then unlocked his phone. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. His name was trending everywhere. A video clip had gone viral, showing Denise denying his transaction, security approaching, and the moment he dropped the bomb about being the CEO. The comments were flooding in. She really called security on the owner? This is why black people can have $1 billion and still get treated like criminals. Bro, I'd have fired her and the security guard on the spot. This man is the CEO of the bank, and they still assumed he was a fraud. Disgusting. Jamal smirked. Good. Let the world see. He dialed Lisa's number. She picked up immediately. I assume you've seen the video, she said, skipping a greeting. I have, Jamal replied. It's already past 2 million views, and the press is reaching out for statements. What do you want to do? Jamal exhaled. He hadn't planned for this to go public, but now that it had, he wasn't going to waste the opportunity. Set up an interview, he said. CNN, CNBC, Bloomberg, I don't care who. I want to talk about what happened. Lisa hesitated. Are you sure? If you go on record, this won't just be about Denise. It'll be about race, discrimination in corporate America, and it should be, Jamal interrupted. This isn't just about me. This is about every black man who walks into a bank in a suit and still gets treated like a criminal. Lisa sighed. Understood. I'll set it up. Jamal hung up, gripping the steering wheel. His mind was racing. Denise was done. That much was clear. But this? This was bigger than her. This was about all the Denises out there. And he was going to make damn sure this moment wasn't forgotten. The moment Jamal's interview was announced, the media exploded to CNN, CNBC, Bloomberg, the New York Times. Every major outlet wanted a piece of the story. The headlines were everywhere. Black CEO denied service at his own bank, speaks out on racial bias in corporate America. Wealth doesn't protect you from racism. Jamal Carter's bank incident sparks nationwide debate. Banking while black. Viral video exposes systemic discrimination. Jamal's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, business leaders, even civil rights activists wanted to connect. But the most unexpected call came 2 days later. Lisa burst into his office, her heels clicking rapidly against the polished wood floors. Jamal, she said breathlessly, holding up her phone. The governor's office just reached out. They want to meet. Jamal leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. The governor? Lisa nodded, still catching her breath. They want to discuss racial bias in financial institutions. Your incident forced the conversation into the national spotlight. Jamal let that sink in. It had started as one humiliating moment. Now, it had ignited something bigger than him. The day of the interview, Jamal walked onto the CNN set with purpose. The cameras focused on him as the anchor, a poised woman named Melissa Carter, no relation, turned toward him with an expression of cautious curiosity. Mr. Carter, she began, let's get straight to it. You are a billionaire. You own the very bank that denied you service. And yet, you were still treated as an outsider. What does that say about racial bias in America? Jamal took a measured breath before answering. It says what black Americans have known for centuries. It doesn't matter how much money we have, how many degrees we earn, how successful we become. There will always be people who assume we don't belong. Melissa nodded, her expression shifting to something heavier. Some people argue that this was just a mistake, that the bank manager was just following protocol. Jamal gave a humorless chuckle. Is that what we're calling it now? Protocol. Tell me, if a white man walked into that bank in a tailored suit, requesting a withdrawal from his own corporate account, do you think he would have been asked for extra verification? Melissa didn't answer. She didn't have to, Jamal continued. The problem isn't just Denise Parker. The problem is a system that teaches people to assume black success is a scam. That a black man in a suit must be a fraudster before he could ever be a CEO. Melissa leaned forward. And now, the video of your experience has gone viral. People are calling it a wake-up call. How do you feel about that? Jamal met her gaze. I feel like it shouldn't have taken me, a billionaire, for people to wake up. Because this happens every single day to black people across America. The only difference is they don't own the bank. They don't have a camera recording the injustice. And when it happens to them, no one listens. A silence stretched across the studio. Then Melissa cleared her throat. So what happens next? Jamal leaned back, his jaw set with determination. What happens next? He echoed. We change the system. The moment the interview aired, the world exploded. Jamal Carter's words weren't just a story. They became a movement. Social media erupted. The hashtags #BankingWhileBlack and #Jamal Carter story trended for days. Celebrities, athletes, and activists weighed in. Even major banking executives were forced to address the issue, many releasing carefully worded statements about their commitment to diversity and inclusion. But Jamal wasn't interested in empty promises that he wanted action, and action came faster than anyone expected. It started with the board of directors at Hamilton First National Bank. The pressure was unbearable. Shareholders were furious. The bank's reputation was in free fall. So, in a desperate attempt at damage control, the board did the inevitable. They called Jamal Carter into an emergency meeting. He sat at the massive conference table, hands clasped, watching the old white men in expensive suits squirm in their seats. The chairman, Richard Davenport, cleared his throat. "Jamal, let's cut to the chase. This incident has put us in a very difficult position." Jamal arched a brow. "Difficult? I'd say it put me in a difficult position when your manager treated me like a criminal." Davenport winced. "Yes, well, we've already terminated Denise Parker. But we need to do more. The public wants change." Jamal smirked. "No, Richard. The public wants justice." Silence. One of the directors, an older man with graying hair, leaned forward. "What are you suggesting?" Jamal didn't hesitate. 1. Every branch manager and employee will undergo mandatory racial bias training. 2. We're launching a new initiative to increase Black and minority homeownership and business loans. No more excuses, no more redlining. 3. I want full oversight on diversity hiring practices. If we don't have a leadership team that reflects the communities we serve, we fix that. Immediately, the room fell silent. Jamal met their eyes, unflinching. Or, I walk, and I take my money with me. The tension in the room shifted, because they knew, if Jamal Carter walked away, investors would follow. Stocks would plummet, and Hamilton First National Bank would never recover. Finally, Davenport sighed heavily, rubbing his temple. "Fine," he muttered. "We'll implement your proposals." Jamal smirked. Checkmate. But it wasn't over. Jamal knew real change didn't happen in boardrooms alone. So, he took his fight to Congress. He testified in front of a packed House committee, sharing his experience, not just as a billionaire, but as a Black man in America. "This isn't about one bank," he told them. "This is about every financial institution that has failed to serve Black Americans fairly. It's about the generational wealth gap, the denied home loans, the lack of investment in Black communities. And it's time for that to end." His testimony sent shockwaves through the industry. Banks across the country rushed to implement new policies, and within 6 months, Congress passed a landmark bill enforcing stricter regulations against discriminatory banking practices. For the first time in history, real systemic change was happening, all because one manager made the mistake of doubting the wrong Black man. The ripple effect of Jamal Carter's fight spread far beyond banking. In the months following his congressional testimony, corporations across America faced a reckoning. Executives were fired. Diversity policies were rewritten. Laws were passed. The banking industry, once notorious for gatekeeping Black wealth, was now under a microscope. And while Jamal had won the battle, he wasn't done with the war. He wanted real, lasting change. So, he did something no one expected. He founded his own bank. It started with a single announcement on social media. "The financial system was never built for us. So, we're building our own. Introducing Carter Financial Group, a bank by us, for us." The post broke the internet. Celebrities, entrepreneurs, and everyday Black Americans flooded his comments with support. "Say less. I'm moving all my money to Carter Financial. Finally, a bank that actually wants Black wealth to grow." This is history in the making. And it was. Within 2 weeks, Carter Financial Group had over 500,000 account signups. Within 2 months, that number grew to 2 million. Major banks panicked. They tried to counter with PR campaigns, offering diversity scholarships and minority business loans. But it was too late. Jamal Carter had shifted the power, and people weren't just watching. They were moving. Meanwhile, Denise Parker was living a nightmare. After being fired, she assumed she'd land on her feet. She had experience, connections, but she was wrong. Every job application was rejected. Her name was poison in the industry. She applied to 26 banks. 26 rejection letters. No one would hire the woman who got exposed for racism on a viral video with millions of views. She lost her savings, her house, her reputation, and as she sat in a cheap, dimly lit apartment, scrolling through news articles about Jamal Carter's success, she realized something horrifying. She hadn't just lost a job. She had lost everything, all because she couldn't see past her own bias. 1 year later, Jamal Carter stood at the grand opening of Carter Financial's flagship headquarters. Reporters swarmed. Photographers snapped pictures that a massive golden plaque was unveiled, bearing the words, Carter Financial Group, a future without barriers. Jamal stepped up to the podium, taking in the crowd. Then, he spoke. "This is more than a bank," he said. "This is a statement." A roar of applause erupted. And as he looked out over the sea of faces, Black entrepreneurs, families, young kids dreaming of generational wealth, he knew the fight had been worth it. They finally had a seat at the table, because now they owned the whole damn building. The grand opening of Carter Financial's flagship headquarters was the event of the year. The media swarmed outside the massive glass tower, eager to capture history in the making. Black entrepreneurs, community leaders, and even politicians were in attendance. Everyone wanted to witness Jamal Carter's victory. But amidst the flashing cameras and roaring applause, a single figure stood in the shadows. Denise Parker. She looked unrecognizable. Her once polished suit was replaced with a wrinkled blazer she had picked up from a thrift store. The fine jewelry she used to wear? Pawned. Her hair, once meticulously styled, hung lifelessly around her shoulders. She gripped a manila envelope in her trembling hands. Inside was her last hope, a job application for Carter Financial Group. She waited until the crowd began to disperse before she stepped forward. Jamal was shaking hands with a senator when she approached, her heart pounding. He turned, and their eyes met, for the first time since that fateful day. And in that moment, Denise felt the weight of everything she had lost: the career, the power, the privilege. She had been untouchable once. Now, she was begging the same black man she had humiliated to save her. "Mr. Carter," she croaked, forcing a smile. "Congratulations on your success." Jamal's expression didn't change. She hesitated before holding out the envelope. I was hoping to apply for a position. I know I made mistakes, but I've spent the last year reflecting, learning. I just need a second chance." Jamal took the envelope, glanced at it. Then, without a word, he tore it in half. Denise's breath caught. "Wait." Jamal dropped the shredded papers at her feet. She stared, stunned. Then, he leaned in, voice low and cold. "You didn't give me a second chance when I stood at your counter," he said. "You assumed I was nothing." Denise's lips trembled. I was wrong." Jamal smirked. "You were. And now." He stepped back, nodding to security. A large black security guard appeared beside her. The same one she had called on him a year ago. Denise gasped. "No, please." But before she could say another word, security escorted her out, just like she had tried to do to him. As Jamal walked back inside, he didn't look back. Denise Parker was a relic of a broken system. And Jamal Carter? He had just built something better.